You guys ready? Okay. I guess we're the ones that matter, huh? Okay, I'll call the order of the RTC meeting of January the 18th, 2019 with a roll call, please.
Von Hartung?
That's about.
Okay. Oh. Present. Hello.
Try this again. Neoma Jordan? Von Hartung? Oscar Delgado? Bob Lucy? Ron Smith?
Here.
Lee Gibson?
Here.
Dale Ferguson?
Here.
And Rudy Malfabon.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Business of the day, I'd like to welcome Councilman Delgado from the city of Reno. Thank you. Yeah.
His first full meeting as a full member.
First full meeting as a full member, is that what you
Correct.
said? And then somebody up here on the dais has a birthday on Monday, and it's not Martin Luther King.
Well, him too.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I get the joy of spending today at the DMV to update my license.
there you go. Take about 20 pieces of paper that they need.
It's
Waste
the
management
gift
bill.
that keeps on giving.
You're
Yeah.
obvious.
It's like jelly of the month.
Okay, we'll move on to general business. The first item is election of new RTC board chair and vice chair for a term of 2 years. Mr. Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to nominate Commissioner Bob Lucy as chair and Commissioner Neoma Jordan as vice chair.
I'll second that motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. It's all yours, Mr. Lucy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And before we get too far along, I want to take a quick second to thank Mayor Smith for his long last 2 years that he served as the chair of RTC. It's been a pleasure to serve as his vice chair.
Thank you.
And under his leadership, we've done a lot of great work and opened some wonderful projects. And it'd be some big shoes to fill. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucy. Thank you.
All right, so we are on our first order of business is a presentation from this morning from NDOT, Mr. John Latoile, who's the NDOT Landscape Architect Supervisor on NDOT's Landscape and Aesthetics presentation. Mr. Latoile, how are you? Good morning. I think Denise is getting that set up for you really quick here.
My name is John Latoile. I'm the Landscape Architect Supervisor at NDOT. I want to thank you so much for having me here this morning. I've been asked to present the Landscape and Aesthetics program that we have in the department, as well as the master plan and corridor plans that we use on a daily basis to guide us on our landscape and aesthetics projects. I'll also be sharing with you some of the developments that we've been building along the I-5 I-80 corridor on the South Meadows area. But before I get there, I'd like to touch on a little history and background on landscape and aesthetics in general. 1950s and 60s, our highways were becoming visual blight in this country. There weren't any laws against littering. Billboards were indiscriminately being built, sometimes blocking the scenic beauty of our country. Until President Lyndon B. Johnson and his wife, Lady Bird Johnson, here in this photo, created the aesthetic acts, the Highway Beautification Act. Lady Bird Johnson was instrumental in starting that movement. It was just 3 years later that NDOT introduces its aesthetic manual. Here's a project on I-15 at Sahara. They're planting trees and adding ground cover, mulch, decorative rock. Not sure what their clear zones were there, Rudy, at that time. Looked like that tree is a little close to the curb. But here's an effort to introduce landscaping and aesthetics to our projects. It was 38 years later that we have the Landscape and Aesthetics Master Plan. The manual did a good job, but there wasn't funding allocated to our projects. The aesthetics weren't required to be used on our highways until the master plan was adopted in 2002. Pattern and palette of place, a landscape and aesthetics plan for the Nevada State Highway Systems. Our past governor, Gwynn, articulates very well in the first page of this document on the importance of aesthetics and highways. He says here, highways are among the most visible artifacts of our civilization. Our highways give form to our communities and impact us every day of our lives. They connect us to each other and to this place we have chosen to call home. They welcome our guests upon arrival and send them on their way when they leave. Because they affect our ecosystems and the way our neighborhoods and places of business connect to one another, they influence the quality of life of every citizen in the state. With the adoption of the master plan, the Transportation Board renewed Nevada's commitment to aesthetics in our highways. Whoops. The board wanted to have, they had a vision of creating highway systems that reflect the land and the people of Nevada. Here's a project in Incline. We worked with the community to get sculptures there, used native planting and boulders to soften the project and have it blend in with the surroundings. Goals of the master plan were to have a budget allocated towards our projects. 3% of the construction of the projects are allocated towards the aesthetics, as well as start the developing corridor plans. There are 11 major corridors throughout the state. Each one has a corridor plan associated with it. The corridor plans are, for Washoe County, are these two here, the I-80 corridor plan, US 395 and I-580, US 50 and our state routes, 28, 207, and 431. This is a design tool that we use almost on a daily basis. It has dedicated different levels of treatment throughout the state corridors. So our projects that are in rural corridors may not have the same level of treatment as we have in more urban areas. It also requires and recommends that the designer use a design approach called context-sensitive design. This simply means that we research the area, look at everything from the flora and fauna, geography, geology, really understanding the area that these projects are being built into. From that, with that background and understanding from the corridor plan, we start on this context-sensitive design, researching maybe some of the history, maybe some of the cultural heritage. This is called interpreting the design. For a project in Elko, we wanted to express the mining heritage there. We looked at historic photos started sketching and coming up with some renditions of sculptural features that we might want to have built on the project. That lower right is the final drawing for an art sculpture that is built on Mountain City Highway in Elko. This is a fairly literal description of that theme of the mining heritage. Sometimes the aesthetics isn't that literal. Sometimes it's more of an abstract form. On this bridge on I-580 going over Virginia or McCarran Street. And you see the aesthetics are imprinted into the barrier rail, and the column of the bridge wraps up and on the side of the bridge rail. In other instances, the aesthetics are simply allowing the landscape to blend in well with the surrounding. This is at the Bowers Interchange in Washoe. We just use boulders and native plants, trees that are adaptable to the area. The bridge is in the background, but as you look at this landscape with the scenery in the background, this foreground landscape really blends in well. Other times, the aesthetics is incorporated into erosion control measures. This is a large hillside that is being armored with riprap, but we use techniques to stain and stain the rock, have it blend in. Some of the topsoil is used within the crevices of the rock, seeding, all in the goal of having this project become less of a scar in the landscape than it would otherwise. We take the edges of the cut line, I'm not sure if you can tell where that is anymore, but we round those, contour the terrain. So from the valley and from the community vantage point, it looks like it belongs there. We always take our projects to the community. We like to share with them, get their endorsement. There's always somebody there that's been there for 50 years and has a great idea for the project, or I remember things were done this way, and we'd like to take that in. I encourage my staff to just think of themselves as a sponge maybe, and just absorb that knowledge and background that the community has. I'd like to share now the projects that we've been building in the South Meadows area along 580. The first step, of course, is to turn towards the corridor plan. The corridor plan prescribes a transportation art in this area, and bridge aesthetic enhancements, revegetating those cut slopes that are visually unappealing. Use Great Basin plant material that's adaptable to the area. And give these interchanges a focal treatment. This is an urban corridor. We can highlight the aesthetics of the area. With that background, we start to interpret the design. We find that in that area, there's a real strong ranching and farming heritage that's very interesting and unique to the area. We have the Truckee Meadows dude ranches, sheep ranches, cattle ranches in the area. Here's a photo of Peleg Brown's farmhouse there in 1864. He cut a lot of irrigation canals into the area, irrigating his alfalfa fields. We look at the architecture and some of the implements that were used at that time to really evoke this Western character into the designs. We have the ranch-style fencing, the windmills, and some of the farm implements. We also look at the attire of the Western, the buckaroo. It's a kind of a unique Western wear unique to Nevada. Wilbur May had a ranch. He had prize Angus cattle that he ranched in the area. That's his branding logo there. It's actually the initials of his name. The W for Wilbur's on the bottom and May is up on top. Divorce was an industry here in the heyday. And if you came, you would have to have residency here for several weeks. You might stay at a dude ranch, and those dude ranches were, again, designed with this Western heritage, this appeal for the Western attire and lifestyle. Here's a gal and her horse in full buckaroo attire. Not sure what a horse is doing at the Southern Pacific Depot, but there she is. And if you're going to stay at a dude ranch, you better know what to wear, right? This article is showing you wear your cowboy hat and your jeans and your plaid shirts and boots, and you'll fit right in. Sheep ranching was important here. We have the bass culture nearby. So we start taking the inspiration for the theme and start developing the actual design, the pattern, the color for the bridge structures and the landscape area itself. So at the South Virginia Interchange at the Summit Mall, we use the farming theme. Here's a sculpture of a farmer in his plow buggy with his trusty farm dog. This is days later, days after it was hydroseeded and planted. We have the windmill in the background, the ranch fencing. And several seasons after that, we have native plants that we've seeded, flowering plants that help the pollinator species. We also have the runoff from the road channelized within the area, and also it dissipates into the area, bringing more moisture to the trees and plantings. This also suppresses weeds. These plantings hold the soil together for erosion control purposes, as well as improve the air quality. There's less particulates that are taken up in the air when we have this dense foliage cover. Moving on to Monte Ranch, the theme here is rodeo and ranching. Some of the Western wear and the boots and the spurs and the hats, those circular designs or the spurs. Someone called me not long after this project was built, what are those round things on the bridges? That's what they are, so everybody knows now what those are. We use that theme in our sculptural pieces. Here's a gal rope and a calf. And this is the project after it's been fully weeded. There are no noxious weeds left. These plantings, there's a little education maybe for all of us. We drive by sometimes and think it looks a little weedy, but in fact, these are native plants that have been there. We protected them in place for cost-saving measures as well as erosion control measures. Rock is expensive, and we have this salt grass that's adapted to the saline soils. It really provides a good protective cover, as well as the sage and the rabbit on those steeper slopes. We try to soften the infrastructure by using some of the patterning and color in the ranch fencing there. In South Meadows, we're celebrating the cattle ranching theme with Wilbur May and his branding pattern there, and we have the Angus cattle being used in that design. We want these projects to be an authentic representation of the community it's in. That's why it's important to study and understand the heritage that might be there. At Neal Road, we'll have the Dude Ranch. This one hasn't been built yet, but we have the conchos design, the color scheme. And Virginia and Patriot, we have the sheep ranching theme being implemented there. Upcoming projects in Washoe County, we're looking forward to the US 95 North Valleys project. It's a widening project. We will have aesthetics as part of that as well. Reno Spaghetti Bowl and I-80 State Line to Keystone, this will be the phase 2 of that project. Again, I'd like to thank you so much for having me. This is a project at Plum. That sculpture is a hawk representing the flight theme that we have because of the vicinity near to the airport.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Now, are there any questions this time? No? Saying no? Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate
You're
that.
very welcome.
I just wanted to thank John for his leadership of the Landscape and Aesthetics Group at NDOT. They've done an amazing job, as you can see. And just that last slide with the stuff at the airport, with all this rain and snow that we've had, that would have looked like just a mud pit had they not designed that project very quickly and got it out. And good job on the program and on these projects in Washoe
Thanks so
County.
much, Rudy. I wish you all very well. Thank you so much.
Oh, hold on. John, one quick question. Councilman Delgado.
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. General question, a question I get often is historically, as we start to look at pieces throughout, of course, Nevada, when does history start in terms of what Nevada means and cultural means from where you guys start to see where we are today in terms of community representation and so forth. Can you answer that for me, please?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really depends on the community's involvement and presenting to them ideas. So when we conceptualize this, we have several ideas that we've come up with. One might be the culture and the history. Others might be more of a flora and fauna theme. And we ask them, what are the values here in your area? What's important to you? Oftentimes it is the culture. Oftentimes it is relating to what was there in the past. So it brings a meaningfulness to that design. So that answers your question completely.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I know talk to you and our students often. There's muralists now in our community that are looking at tracking history. It's interesting in terms of how government entities seem to start their history in terms of where Nevada starts, and then the gaps in between to the Paiutes of the natives, and then everything in between. So it's interesting to see where you guys took your history from in terms of how you implement that into the artistic landscaping that you guys do. And it's beautiful, but just those general question that I know that's often I don't necessarily have the answer to. It was interesting to hear from your perspective where you guys start from.
Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions at this time? All right, seeing none. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. All right. We are on to approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve.
So
Or
moved.
changes.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, under the consent agenda, 311 and 312, I'd like just a little bit of feedback on, but I think we can still leave them in the consent agenda if that's appropriate.
So, all right, what we'll do is we'll ask for a little bit of further in depth on 311 and 312, but we'll leave them in consent at this time. All right, looking for a motion.
And so moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. It's all right. We are on to item 2, public comment. So I have a few individuals signed in here this morning for public comment. I'll call you up. We have 3, everybody is 3 minutes. So first off, I have Joanna Traeger. Joanna, come on down. Good morning. Welcome.
I'm going to read, sorry.
That's fine.
Nerve-wracking to be up here. So I'm commenting regarding item 6.1 on today's agenda, and that's the analysis of options for bicycle infrastructure on Center and Sierra Streets. So I'd like to voice my strong support for alternative 1, which is a 2-way physically separated cycle track along Center Street. I volunteer with the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance, and we've surveyed the university community to gauge their interest in bike infrastructure in this corridor. When we did that survey, we found that fully 81% of respondents said that they would cycle more or would cycle for the first time if they had access to a 2-way physically separated cycle track in that corridor. And that's versus just 25% of respondents who said that they would cycle more or for the first time with just a painted bike lane, the kind that we already have in typical places in Reno. So this track would encourage more people to travel by bike, which is a stated goal of the RTC, of the City of Reno, and of UNR. And then also note that this track would reduce the level of traffic stress for cyclists on Center Street from a current 4, which is appropriate only for confident and aggressive cyclists and is very high stress, to a 1 to 2, which is low stress and suitable for families with children and individuals who need to build up confidence and skills. So this would also open up cycling as an option for a wider range of citizens. Center Street is lined with businesses, and the vast majority of these businesses enthusiastically support the 2-way physically separated alternative. The university has also given its written support for that alternative. So please approve alternative 1 so that we can increase bicycle access in this important corridor and get more people and more types of people on bikes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next I have Andrew Samuelson. Good morning, Mr. Samuelson.
Good morning. I'm Andrew. I'm a resident of downtown, a business owner. I own a really small real estate development company that works a couple blocks from Center Street. And I'm also a volunteer for the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. First, on behalf of that group, I just want to say thanks for a seat at the table. We've really felt like partners, and that our input, doing these surveys, that kind of thing, was really welcomed into this process. Center Street right now is kind of an underperforming asset. It's overbuilt for cars, and it serves kind of solely to move cars through downtown really quickly. And because of that, it discourages people from walking and biking because it's unsafe. A two-way protected cycle track would really help transform it and bring it in line with what else we want to do with downtown. Make people feel comfortable walking and biking and spending time at the bowling stadium, that kind of stuff downtown, and not just cruise through. Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance brought this idea to a handful of businesses and organizations along the route and have had a really great support. Starting in the north, UNR has provided, all these people have provided a written letter of support, starting with UNR, the Renaissance Hotel, Patagonia Outlet, some other businesses that took a big bet on that neighborhood. Pine State Biscuits, CC Coffee, right on Center Street, Marmot Properties, a big landlord in Midtown. Numerous small offices, restaurants, bars in Midtown, and then also regional organizations like Holly, Quality Bike Products, Lime Bike, Edon. And then finally, I think if we treat this as a step in a network, pretty soon we're gonna make it a reality that people can get around. They can do maybe 50% of their trips by bicycle, and that pays dividends to the rest of society. You know, it's another car you're not sitting in traffic behind, you're not fighting with them for a parking spot. There's lower emissions. The population is healthier with the active lifestyle. They're more dialed into their community, and they move slower through the neighborhoods, and that helps revitalize neighborhoods. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Samuelson. Next, I have Rebecca Stetson. Good morning, Ms. Stetson.
Good morning. Oh, here we go. Oscar, thank you for what you said earlier about where do we start history. I really appreciate that. Good conversation starter. So I'm Rebecca Stetson. After the presentation, I'm going to represent the National Wildlife Federation. Right now, I'm representing myself. And I'm a mom of 3 kids. I moved into Midtown to intentionally be able to bike around the city more easily after moving off my organic farm about 4 years ago. And it's interesting. I love our city very much, but right now we do have a lot of opportunity. And right now, when I leave my house on my bike with my children, I have to make a judgment call of whether I'm endangering their safety or not. And so one of my favorite outings is Saturday mornings, getting to go from my house between Mount Rose and Plum down to McKinley Arts Center to the farmer's market. And right now, like I said, my son always wants to come with me, and I really have to judge, am I putting him in harm's way, being as we don't have very good bike infrastructure. I will be the first to admit, I drive way too fast down Center Street. It is underutilized, and there's so much that could be done, and there's so many public health benefits to more bikeability for the city. Center Street is ripe for the picking. On my bike, I love the proposal of how it would actually be set up on Center Street, because as it stands right now, I do have to be really cognizant, is somebody gonna open their door into me? And I have several friends who that's happened to. I have a girlfriend in San Francisco who just 2 weeks ago, you know, her face is pretty messed up because somebody opened their door into her when she was biking. So the proposal that we have is really smart because it would create a lot of safety, and it would create use on that street that is really beneficent compared to the underutilization, and certainly I think would deter people from driving so fast because it would give new life to that street that has otherwise been kind of underutilized. And we have these businesses that have come in and have, like Andrew said, made a gamble in trying to improve that area and making it look nicer and being able to use it more often. And so the cycle track, I think, would really add more benefit to our city that we're doing our best to make something really, really positive and something beautiful. So thank you guys for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Stetson. Appreciate it. Next, I have Genevieve Parker.
Good morning. I also have some notes that I will read from periodically. My name is Genevieve Parker. My title is Program Director at the Reno Bike Project, and so I'm here speaking for that organization as well as my person. Reno Bike Project is a nonprofit community bicycle shop and cycling resource for the Truckee Meadows. And we are strongly in support of option 1, the protected bicycle track 2 ways up and down Center Street. I do want to thank Chair people Jordan and Delgado for their support for this project so far and bringing it this far. And I just want to highlight, first of all, the potential for increasing cycling infrastructure connectivity. I don't know if any of you have had the chance to ride on the new 4th Street bike lanes, but they make a huge difference. That street feels so much safer to bike on now, and that's a project that I'm really happy with. And one of, I think, the major weaknesses in our current bicycle network right now is that it's not really a network, and there is a lot of phasing in and out of infrastructure. And so with 4th Street going east and west and Center Street north to south, for kind of the first time, you've got, you know, a true beginning of a lattice that people could actually travel distances by bicycle safely. So that is a big deal. And I also, you know, in addition to encouraging you to choose option 1 for this project, would also encourage you to build more protected infrastructure like this in the future. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, that's all I have so far signed in for public comment this morning. If there's anybody in the audience that'd like to speak at this time on general public comment, you can come down and fill out a form and speak at this time. Seeing none, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board. We are on to item 3, our consent agenda. Mr. Gibson.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to take item 3.4 off the consent agenda. That is the public transportation report, and I will handle that item, not Mr. Chickling.
Okay. All right, so we've had a request this morning to have a presentation for a 3.11 and 3.12, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, no, I just have a couple of questions on these, having personally had to deal with eminent domain and condemnation on property that I own, not in Nevada, in another place. And so I just have some questions for staff. Mr. Gibson can probably answer them. And just tell me when we're ready and I'll be
Go ahead, sir.
happy. Thank you. So on item 3.1, second paragraph, second sentence, it says approval of this resolution of condemnation for Roe will allow the RTC to initiate condemnation proceedings for these property rights for timely acquisition in the event that continued negotiations with the property owners are unsuccessful. That's a threat, I'm sorry. That's just a threat. And I'm uncomfortable with that. I think condemnation should be the last resort, and not even given consideration until all talks break down. And I would give the same consideration to 3.12. That's just my opinion, and I would, in the consent agenda, I would vote against both of those items. I know that it comes as a block, but those are the 2 items that I would vote against. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gibson, do you have any comment?
Mr. Chair, I'll defer to legal counsel.
All right.
That statement, Commissioner Hartung, is meant to say that in the event after a resolution of condemnation is approved here at the board today, continued negotiations result in a settlement, that can happen. If we need to reword it differently in future agenda items, we will. But if you're intending to vote against those 2 items, maybe we should pull those so they can be voted on separately. And the only reason I have angst with this is probably because I
My family has owned property in Wyoming for 100 years, and it's a constant threat of condemnation to put infrastructure across, and it's very liberal, and I want to make sure that negotiations go to the full extent that they possibly can, so that everyone has an opportunity to come to the table, and both parties don't dig their heels in, and there's, you come to an impasse. And that's, and to me, again, when we, it's sort of I'll use the term sort of Damocles. We're hanging that over the negotiations to say, hey, look, if you don't come to the table and we don't come to a resolution, we're going to condemn you anyways. So I will use the term offended.
I will not get into a philosophical debate
Understood,
about
sir.
the issues of condemnation.
Okay, so, hold on one second. Before we get too far down this, and it seems like there needs to be further discussion about this, what we'll do is let's at this time pull 3.1 and 3.11, 3.2, 3.12, Jesus. 3.11 and 3.12 out of the consent agenda for this time, and we'll take those as individual votes, and then leave the remainder in the consent. Aside from 3.4, which you want to take care of at this time, Mr. Gibson. So let's do that, if the board isn't okay with that.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
So what we'll do so we'll pull 3.11 and 3.12 from the consent agenda. So Mr. Gibson.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a clarification in the staff report for item 3.4. First off,
Just to be absolutely clear, could we have a motion
Sure.
for the approval of the rest of the
He was gonna
consent
say
agenda?
something.
But he was going to say he's going to enlighten on,
I
and
have to
then we
make
will
a
do that
clarification
motion.
on 3.4, so we either can take 3.4 along with 3.11
Thank
and
you, Mr.
3.12 off the consent, or I can just make the clarification and move on.
No, let's just make a clarification.
Okay. The clarification is this: in the fixed route request for proposal update, there was a statement made that BAFOs would be due yesterday. The committee has not completed its work. BAFOs have not been requested, and I am awaiting a report, and we've got to get through this. The holidays brought us perhaps a little more delay than we thought we would have. So we will be bringing a report next month to the commission on that matter. But the rest of the 3.4 is in order for approval.
Thank you. All right, so I am looking for a motion to accept the consent agenda with the clarifications on 3.4 and the removal of 3.11 and 3.12.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, now this time we will open 3.11 for further discussion in regards to the condemnation, approve the resolution of condemnation of authorizing RTC's legal counsel to commence condemnation proceedings to acquire one permanent easement and one temporary construction easement on APN 014-25127 from Olson Investments LLC, necessary to construct the Virginia Street Bus Rapid Transit Extension Project. Brian, how are you?
Good. Brian Stewart, Director of Engineering. Just to give you a little more clarity with respect to this parcel for 3.11, in which we're asking for the approval of the resolution of condemnation and legal counsel proceedings to follow that process. So on the Olson Investment property, all we're seeking there is a right to construct and maintain a sidewalk, curb, and pedestrian ramp. So that is the right to actually construct it, so the room to be able to do that. And then when we say maintain, there is a permanent part of that so that you can maintain that sidewalk forever to ensure the public safety. There's two rights on that property, to the right of some landscaping and street lighting also. Any more information that you'd like on that?
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Commissioner Hartung.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm not arguing the benefits of the need. I'm arguing the methodology with which we're using to obtain those rights. That's the part that I'm arguing. It's not the benefit. I totally get the benefit. But it's, again, even the way that this is worded, the statement of "in the event."
Commissioner Hartung?
Sir.
Perhaps the way this is set up is to follow Nevada law in Chapter 37 for eminent domain. And perhaps you and I could have discussion about that procedure and how it is followed, and maybe we could take some of your concerns into consideration, at a later time.
And I'm happy to do that. I'm still not going to support this, and I know that I'll be the cheese here, and that's okay. The reason is that I want to utilize condemnation as the absolute last option on the table.
Yes,
Absolute last.
I think we
Not the
have
first.
gone to great lengths at this point to negotiate to acquire these property interests in order to accommodate this project. And as of this moment in time, those efforts have not been successful. And in order to stay on track to construct this project, we need to have a resolution of condemnation from this board. We can still negotiate with these property owners even after the act of this board today, and we certainly can do that.
So I guess, and I haven't been part of the negotiations, I guess the question would be is, has the property owner drawn a line in the sand and said absolutely no, or is there a path forward? And those are, and unfortunately, that's never articulated to us, and so.
And I, too, have not been personally involved in the negotiation. I believe the staff has done that, but I would certainly
No, and again, I'm happy.
invite you and I to sit down and have a,
I sadly understand condemnation better than I have ever wanted to because of personal experiences, but we'll just for the sake of time, let's just go ahead and move forward, and it'll stand where it stands, and I
All right.
understand completely. I'm not offended. I'm just,
okay.
by the direction that the board wants to take, I just have some personal angst.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Commissioner Smith.
Condemnation is always the last result and, or resort. And by pointing it out that is on the table at all times does not mean we're threatening anybody as far as I'm concerned. I'll be supporting this, but I just don't think that by pointing out that condemnation is part of the process does not mean we're threatening anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Any further comment? At this time, I'm looking for a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Jardin, second from Commissioner Delgado. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay?
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Hartung in the opposition. All right. Item 312. Mr. Stewart.
Item 312 is a resolution of condemnation for property rights related to APN 011-22634, necessary to construct the Virginia Street Bus Rapid Transit Extension Project. So we're looking for the board to approve the attached resolution of condemnation, authorizing RTC's council to commence the condemnation proceedings and to acquire one permanent easement and one temporary construction easement on APN 011-22634 from the Ponderosa Hotel and Nevada Corporation, necessary to construct the improvements. Again, these are pretty minor improvements to maintain sidewalk. In fact, read the details with respect to that. It's a right to construct and maintain sidewalk, curb, and pedestrian ramp and a storm drain. There's also a right to build a pedestrian ramp and driveway transition, landscaping, irrigation, and street lighting improvements for that parcel. So any more questions or details needed on that action?
Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you very much, and I will be supporting this as well. And I do think it's important to note on the record the importance of keeping this project moving forward as quickly as we possibly can. I think there's some other delays from government shutdown that may be impacting us, and I certainly don't want this to potentially impact it as well. And I will say there have been some other property owners along Virginia Street that have been through the negotiation process, and those have been resolved. So this isn't unusual. I don't think that this is in any way a threat. I think it's when you reach a point of impasse, you have to keep the train moving, and this is a part of that process. But I did want to point out that there have been other property owners that have been in the same or similar negotiating process, and they've been able to be resolved. So I will be supporting this largely because it's part of a process, and largely because this project does not need any more delays.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, any further comments? None? Seeing none, looking for a motion. I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. I have a motion from Commissioner Jarden, second from Commissioner Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Hartung being in the opposition. All right, that moves us on to item 4.1, RTC Executive Director Report. Mr. Gibson.
Mr. Chairman, a couple items today. It's a short report. We are, staff at RTC are currently in the process of updating our RTC ADA transition plan. We started that back on September of last year, and we've held 2 public meetings. We will be having another public meeting on February 12th at our offices at 1105 Terminal Way, and that meeting will start at 2 p.m. The meeting is a stakeholder roundtable, is open to agencies providing services to individuals with disabilities, and it is also open to the public. We invite anyone who's interested in this to please come. For more information about the ADA transition plan, go to rtcwasho.com, and you can find information there. I also want to announce the ridership results of RTC's New Year's Eve free safe ride program. We had the highest ever percent increase this year at 54%. We had 10,175 rides. This was a great milestone, and I'm proud that our public transit services provided a safe alternative for folks who were celebrating or perhaps over-celebrated the New Year's Eve and the arrival of 2019. We had a large number of sponsors, and we'll invite them in for next month's board meeting. So with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes my Executive Director's report.
Great, thank you. Any questions on the Executive Director report? Seeing none. We were on to 4.2, Federal Report. Mr. Gibson.
Mr. Chairman, a couple items on the federal report. FTA is closed, so we are unable at this point to continue our discussions with respect to the capital investment grant that we have been negotiating with the FTA now for a number of months. Right before the government shutdown, we in fact had a major milestone, 97.6% complete, when we had and hosted a risk assessment workshop to which FTA's project management oversight consultants were working with us to define risks. We should have seen that report in December, but unfortunately we have not seen that report because the FTA has been closed for the last month. Looking forward, if the shutdown continues, there is a potential that a drawdown could be delayed. I believe that drawdown is in the neighborhood of about $2.5 million to help us close out the fourth Prater project. Congress goes in and out of session, and there are bills that are proposed and voted on, but nothing seems to be moving. It's just going to have to take a wait and see approach. I know, and I'm sure Rudy will talk about this in his report, FHWA, on the other hand, is open for business, and things are moving along with respect to other elements. But I think, and maybe Rudy can talk about this, there are some permitting agencies that may be closed, and I don't know if those permitting agencies are starting to slow down projects. I saw a news report where the governor of Montana was talking about how their state DOT, other environmental agencies that are closed, permits can't be processed. So while FHWA is open and could ostensibly perhaps make a payment, you can't get a permit through some of the other resource agencies that are out there. So we'll have further information next month, hopefully. Hopefully they'll be back in business. I will point out the state legislature starting, and that's always an engaging event, and we'll probably be having a report, our first report next month on the state legislature. So with that concludes my stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. I appreciate that federal report, and hopefully we find some resolution with the federal government soon. Until that time, we're still here working, folks, so we're here for you. All right, we're on to item 4.3. Mr. Moffbon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. NDOT did not have a transportation board meeting in January of 2019, but we're planning on having one in February after we conduct some briefings for the new state controller, lieutenant governor, and the governor and his staff. We just wanted to communicate how the board meetings were run in the past and delegation of authority and contract limits that were delegated to the NDOT director. There will be, we're anticipating that the second Monday of February we'll have the transportation board as regularly scheduled. On Monday, February 11th, we're going to have a public hearing for overdimensional vehicle permits, just to wrap up that process for rulemaking. It's trying to get uniformity with some of our overdimensional vehicle permits and looking at what other western states do. Revise the NRS for electronic permitting that we've had in place for a few years now, and just try to get into the modern ways of doing business, but also make some other housekeeping changes to NRS 484D. We had the public hearing for the draft environmental impact statement for Spaghetti Bowl project. We did receive a lot of comments about the airport ramps, and we'll respond to those comments. We saw Mayor Cashel, former Mayor Cashel's article in the local press. And we're still going to work with the airport on that issue. But as to Lee's comment about the other federal agencies that are affected by the furloughs, Federal Highway Administration is not, but BLM, the U.S. EPA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, those are examples of some resource agencies that review environmental documents or are involved in permitting, and they're not considered essential at this time. So it could delay the environmental approval for the Spaghetti Bowl project, hopefully by not too much, but it will likely have a delay. We were anticipating about the mid-year approval of what's called a record of decision for that environmental impact statement. It might be a month or so later, but it's still on schedule as far as the procurement process for that project, which is our first phase would be a design-build project that's going to fix those major issues at the Wells Avenue exit to 580 and 395 North. As regards to the federal shutdown, as Lee had mentioned, Federal Highway Administration they're operating under the FAST Act, which is a 5-year surface transportation bill. So since they have authorization, they're not furloughed, but there's other modal agencies that are affected, like Federal Transit Administration, they're furloughed. Where NDOT is affected is that we are committed to supporting the rural transit operators. A lot of folks in the rural counties have van pools and such that take seniors and disabled folks to medical appointments and to shopping. That's essential for them. And we feel that it's important as a public safety issue to support that. During this time, we might get delayed reimbursement from Federal Transit Administration, but we feel that it's important to support that effort. Then last but not least, I wanted to mention that I'll be retiring soon from NDOT. I've had over 31 years that I've enjoyed working as a NDOT employee and as a state employee, and I really had a good time, good support from my staff. Cole Mortenson's in the audience. He's our chief engineer and assistant director for engineering. Just as Cole and others, Sandra usually attends the meeting. She had to go to back in DC for the Transportation Research Board meetings, but my staff have been excellent at supporting me and making the department look good and successful, and I just wanted to thank my staff, and also thanks to Lee and his staff at RTC, Washoe County, and this board. This board's been very instrumental in giving NDOT direction not only just at these meetings, but periodically. I know that I've talked to some of you about the issues that you see in your areas of your constituency. And I also wanted to thank Jake's here from FHWA. We couldn't be as successful as we are without that federal funding and federal oversight and training that we received from the Federal Highway Administration. So I wanted to express my appreciation to the feds as well, because they're often picked on for being the ones that hold us up, but usually it's not so. But thank you to all your support. I've really enjoyed my time as NDOT director, and after 31 years, it's really, people say I have a smile on my face a lot more often now as I've come to accept retirement, so thank you. So Governor Sisolak would like to make a selection, but I haven't heard yet. So it depends on if he would like me to have an overlap. I'm willing to do so, but if it's somebody that's selected from within NDOT, then it would require less of an overlap because they're more familiar with our structure and our processes and the legislative issues that we're going to face.
Oh, great.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Commissioner Delgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along with those lines, Mr. Malfavon, I just wanted to thank you and your appreciation, not only for your leadership, but also to your staff. Most recently, I've met with them regarding the Spaghetti Bowl. I'd say the majority of that project falls within my ward. So it's important, the dialogue that I have with them ongoing in terms of the community outreach that they're providing and the transparency and the openness. I appreciate that a lot, and I know it comes from leadership and ask, so thank you for that, and please pass on my thanks to the staff as well.
Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you very much. I too wanted to thank you, Rudy, for all of your help on a myriad of issues, from cleaning up under the underpasses, which you've done a fabulous job. If those in the audience recall, there was a period where there was lots of trash, lots of tents, lots of really unsavory things under a number of the underpasses, particularly coming into our downtown and the entrance to our city. You kind of changed the way in which you approached that. Instead of kind of going in and cleaning up after the fact, which you did, you changed it to kind of prevent it from happening on the front end, and you did some ongoing maintenance stuff. And there's been a huge difference because it's been clean ever since. So I appreciate that, because those were things that we heard on a regular basis of concern, and frankly, it was a safety issue, which I witnessed one day. It terrified me. So thank you for all your work on a number of things. You've always been very receptive. You've always carried our concerns back, and you've done level best to help us in our region, so thank you for that. The one kind of hanging thing that whomever your replacement may be, we haven't buttoned down the bid money from NDOT yet, and that took a long time of explaining the benefits, including the one I just kind of referenced. So any input you have on where that is or how that continues to be the commitment that NDOT previously made?
Yes, we're committed to supporting that effort. My deputy director, Bill Hoffman, has been working on the agreement for that. So
Okay.
we'll get that. I'll remind him when I get back to the office.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And thank you for your support, Commissioner
Yes.
Jordan.
Congratulations on your retirement.
Commissioner Harton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Retirement is intoxicating, isn't it? It's just even the thought of it. I understand completely. Mr. Malfamon, I just wanted to thank you so much for your open door policy. I know every time I've contacted you, you've contacted me back immediately. If I call you, you pick up the phone. You've been highly instrumental in District 4 with a number of projects, and I cannot begin to express my debt of gratitude for those in District 4, but also throughout the region. You really have, as Ms. Jordan pointed out, taken our concerns back to the table, because it has been tough, and it's kind of like trying to wrestle a bone away from a dog. Sometimes you're successful, many times you're not, you're going to get bit. And so I commend you with all of the efforts, including 395 North, 580, the Spaghetti Bowl, and the literal tangle of that braid, pun intended. And so I really do appreciate all of the efforts, and I'm hoping that we will not drop the desperate need for I-80 going east out into the East Truckee Canyon and dealing with the problems that we have out there. So I'm hoping that that will continue. And I really wanted to thank you. Thank you for your service. You'll be missed.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. And we are looking at that I-80 corridor east of Sparks. One of the things that we're going to be doing is developing a grant application to further study that area, and then eventually get it to the more environmental and design phase, and then eventually construction. We know that is a need, and also Governor Sandoval, when he was outgoing as governor, asked us to come back in about 3 months to update the Transportation Board on that corridor and what our plans were for a schedule.
Great. All right. Thank you. Rudy, I'll just keep my comments quick and brief. You know, it's been an honor to serve with you, and I think you've been a phenomenal advocate for the North and your staff has been tremendous. I know Cole and Sandra are awesome, and we'll enjoy working with them, and I look forward to working with them in the future. But it's been under your leadership that it's been phenomenal, and it's been a real pleasure to serve here in the RTC alongside of you. And I feel that you have obviously continually heard our concerns and addressed those. And for me specifically, Melrose Highway. So I want to thank you for that, and I wish you all the best in any future endeavors, and hopefully you'll enjoy your retirement. But you will be sorely missed. With that, we will close the NDOT report and close out item 4.
I want to take my shots at Rudy.
Oh, do you want to take your shots at Rudy on that? You want to take your shots on that?
So in my
all right, Mr. Gibson.
In my eulogy, I want to start with a question. When did you become Southern Nevada Deputy Director?
So it was in 2003 that I came back to NDOT after a 5-year hiatus, working for another state DOT and for the private sector.
Okay, I'm just trying to quantify the number of years I've known you, which would be 16. I remember, this is terrible, I took you to lunch in 2003.
Lee actually paid for lunch.
Yeah, I paid for lunch, yeah, oh yeah. But we went to a nice restaurant too. Anyway, I've had to work with you from the perspective of the private sector, and I've had to work with you in this capacity as the Executive Director of the RTC. One, I appreciate your leadership and your staff. I think you've done an excellent job coaching your staff, and you've helped establish a performance-based planning and decision-making system for the state. That is critical for all of us in the state, given current population distributions, because we need to have a level playing field when it comes to making decisions on investments in our state system. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that fair and balanced approach. You've treated all partners, whether you're in the private sector or the public sector or local government, fairly and openly. And I also want to commend you. If we stop and look at the timetable through which the SDX project has moved, I can't think of a project either in Southern Nevada or up here that has moved as quickly. And I think that's a testament to you helping us get through the NEPA process, your staff partnering with our staff and getting the planning work done and just getting that project positioned for construction. So thank you very much for everything you've done.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. And I have no public comment signed in for item 4 on any of these items as well. So, Mr. Malfabon, good luck. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we're on to item 5.1 in engineering. This is to acknowledge the receipt of the Virginia Street Rapid Bus Rapid Transit Extension Monthly Progress Report.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Wilbrecht will give that presentation.
All right.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Wilbrecht, RTC Project Manager on the Virginia Street project. So again, I'm going to give you kind of a quick monthly update and kind of run through what's been happening. To start with, on the utility project that's currently ongoing, we're a little bit more than 75% of the way, maybe a little bit less than 75% of the way done with the utility phase of the project. As of last Friday, we were 72 working days into the 115 working day contract. There have been a couple weird delays, or not weird, but some of the storm drain systems that we've been installing. The road's really old, and so some of the existing utilities have been in conflict with those new improvements, and the contractor's been doing really well to work through those problems. So it's been going really, really well from a schedule standpoint. We've been bouncing around and doing a lot of work. Kind of talking about the roadway design and the CMAR process. The roadway design is going to encroach on 100% design towards the end of the month, early February. I think the February 5th is the date that we've been told we'll receive those plans, at which time we'll review them and give them to the city, and also kind of do this final review to pile it all together to have a 100% design. Speaking to the CMAR process, we're continuing to work with the CMAR contractor and work through the plans to continue to negotiate and try to come to every milestone we kind of come to a consensus of opinion and probable construction cost. So we're still currently working through the 90% probable construction cost and trying to organize the schedule so that we're comparing apples to apples in how we compare that CMAR cost with our independent construction estimator cost. And then Mr. Gibson already spoke about the FTA and the risk assessment and that aspect of it, but that's still ongoing. We should receive our final risk assessment report or draft risk assessment report once the government opens back up. So talking a little bit more about the utility project, all the dry utility components are pretty much done now. Those utility companies are starting to come into the corridor and run their fiber optic, run their new power lines that we've installed for them that are underground. And right now we've been doing a lot of work for Tumwa. And so Tumwa has lots of betterments and improvements throughout the corridor that we've been working on for them. And then we're also working on storm drain improvements. And so those are ongoing throughout the entire corridor. I'll talk about it a little bit later too, but the next big upcoming storm drain component of work is the Cochran Ditch, which is an old ditch that kind of follows along is near St. Lawrence and Toma Street is where that is kind of in with our project limits, and we'll start working on that soon. And then once the summer, the warmer temperatures come up, we'll go do some permanent patching outside of the corridor where those utility improvements kind of extended to existing improvements. So that's kind of something that's going to come back up a little bit later in this early springtime. And then once we're done with the utility project, we'll go through and kind of do some temporary striping to clean up the corridor so that before we start construction in this interim time, it's all functional for the residents and community and businesses. And then we've done lots of outreach. We continue to do outreach all the time. In December, we went out and gave cookies to all the professional service businesses throughout the corridor, and that was a good activity. I kind of skipped over traffic control. I'll go back to that. January, we did a New Year's Eve event where we supported some Midtown New Year's Eve activities. In January, we're going to do a jelly donut kind of free morning. And then in February, we're going to do a Fit in February type event where it kind of meets the overall outreach goals of the project of every month kind of doing something. Traffic control, we're going to continue the one-way traffic control. I talked about the Cochran Ditch work earlier. That's going to be a pretty big activity crossing at Virginia Street at Toma and then also crossing St. Lawrence Street and then the temporary striping. I was also asked to kind of give a heads up or an update of the BRT stops. And so here's some photos of our BRT stops in Midtown. We've somewhat redesigned them to, as much as possible match the existing BRT stops, but kind of update them slightly. A lot of the ones that we're constructing in the heart of Midtown have a slightly smaller footprint. They're approximately the same size as the BRT stops on 4th Street, which are a little bit smaller than the other ones on Virginia Street. They're going to keep the same green aesthetic and kind of a similar roof line, although not quite the same, but trying to keep all those similar architectural details. They're going to be see-through, kind of similar to the 4th Street BRT stops. The UNR stops, I have a photo of that too. It's going to kind of take away the architecture of UNR where it has some brick facade. So here's the one at LaRue and the Grunmeyer station, and per a past direction of this commission, we continued negotiation with that property owner, and we kind of came to this kind of pretty good resolution. So an agreement is pending on that property for the right-of-way. Here's the one near Liberty. So this is going to be southbound at Liberty, where there's a stop there. And then this one's down towards Regency near the Auto Zone, and this is a northbound stop, and it's the kitty corner to the existing Mount Rose stop. And then here's the one at UNR. It has a similar aesthetic, the brick. It's a little bit longer. These ones are going to be as long as the existing rapid stations. They're going to be used in conjunction with some of the UNR transit elements. So the UNR has its shuttle service that will also be able to use these bus stops.
Mr. Chair, if I could interrupt.
Yes.
Jeff, could you go back to that? I don't want to play architectural critic, but the brick tone was asked for by the university to, if I'm not mistaken, to conform with their Jeffersonian style of color, texture, and architecture on campus. So,
Yeah, they have a very specific brick that we're going to be using.
but I believe the back of the station is somewhat like 4th Prater. And then all of the solar panels, I think we're endeavoring to keep these guys all energy self-sufficient, so.
Correct.
Commissioner Harton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't see, does the bus actually pull out, or does it impede the travel lane there?
So in this one, it's in its own, it doesn't impede the travel lane that you can get around it. There's 2 lanes of traffic there.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and exactly examine what the street layout looks like. I can't recall. And then it is able to flow into the roundabout there. So the roundabout's the northern terminus of the BRT extension.
Right.
And so it's been designed to stop, and then once it's full, it can then enter the roundabout and circle around.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you,
Mr. Chair, if I may, I maybe characterize it as sort of the first, last stop, first stop.
Okay.
It's the last stop of the northbound run, and it's the first stop of the southbound run.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, that one stop is both northbound. It's the northern.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you very much. And I don't know if Director Gibson would like to give a kind of a quick summary update of the meeting we had on Friday and how some of the finishes of some of these stations may be in flux. I don't know if you want to give the update or if you'd like me to.
Well, why don't we do a tag team? I'll start by saying we are working with the city to get through questions about exact details of finishes related to textured materials, lights, benches especially, just to make sure. For example, I like to characterize a bench this way. It's about 7 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. That's the envelope. That's an envelope that really allows for a functioning sidewalk that meets ADA design. But the actual themes, I guess the new term of art is functional art, still have yet to be determined. We're going to work through those types of what I call micro details in a kind of a cooperative fashion with the city. I know I've had one suggestion from a Midtown merchant to have the word Midtown perhaps stamped or somehow formed metallurgically into, say, a bench so that people know they're in Midtown. So these are the types of things we'll be working on. We'll be scheduling a meeting perhaps with some folks who can give us a better sense of not so much design, but the actual functional need plus the manufacturing, assembly, and installation requirements that would be associated with that. But it's really an effort to, as we get down to the last gnat's whiskers, to really get those details right. So, and still stay consistent with some in past decisions that have been made jointly by RTC and the City Council.
Thank you. And I agree. The meeting we had, to back up a little bit, there was a meeting approximately 2 years ago with a group from Midtown that talked about what we'll call, and I know this isn't the technical term, but the finishes, which really set the project off, and that this very special street needs to have those very unique and special finishes. And what do those look like, and how can they maybe be a little more creative and that sort of thing. So these discussions started as long as 2 years ago. And while some things are already set in stone, the lights were chosen by the community. Those are set in stone. I think the sidewalk color and texture is kind of literally set in stone. But there are things that we can collaborate on artistically and look forward to making very unique and special to the area on the go forward. And bus stops were one of them. And I was told a couple of weeks ago that the bus stops, and understanding, I know the Grudemeyer issue, and he wanted it clear, totally get that bus stop, I get it. He's got a business behind it, I get it. But I was told the other bus stops would have a unique application similar to Fourth Prater to set off in this instance. Maybe it's something about UNR's history with some graphics and that sort of thing. And then we were told, no, they're all gonna be this kind of standard clear. My understanding is that that's not totally set in stone. And I'm telling you this because you weren't at the meeting on Friday, but that was discussed. But you came here today and said that they're going to be clear and they're going to look like this. And my understanding is that's not a done deal. So I just want to go on the record and get confirmation that we are not, by accepting this report today, committing ourselves that all the bus stops are going to look like what we're seeing today.
I think it's, go back a couple of slots. So I think the idea in the bus stop layout was one, some of the design features from Fourth Prater, I think that we had a lot of people liked, was sort of the see-through capability, the clearness. Of course, in Fourth Prater, we did a very extensive historical analysis, and part of the decision in that project was to tell the history of the Lincoln Highway in the materials. Is it, Jeff, is it glass? It's a higher texture kind of polymer, glass. Yeah, with a textured glass. We've really not gotten to the detail where we're going to tell the story of Virginia Street so much, but what we wanted to do was keep the transparency and visibility through the station here. The stations also on Virginia Street approximate, as Jeff said, the plan view, if you were looking down at it from the sky, the plan view footprint is similar to what you see on Fourth Prater, not the massive length, except up by UNR where we have the last stop, first stop operation by the Lawler Center. So I think the intent here was also to have those solar panels. If I'm not mistaken, those solar panels rotate with the seasons and the sun to keep the electricity generation going. So they're a little bit different. I think my intention, if I've led to any confusion, I should have maybe clarified, is the basic footprint box is similar in size to Fourth Prater, but we want to be still sensitive to, for example, on this one, we have a railing in the back to help separate pedestrians from bus passengers, also provide assistance for anyone who may need it as they come into the slight upgrade that you come into to board the bus. So that's a little bit different. So I think the idea here is to keep the advantages we've learned in design from Fourth Prater, put them in place on Virginia Street, but at the same time still keep a design connectivity with the existing area, as best I can say it. I still think we have some wiggle room here to work.
Yeah, so when you say we decided that it would be this, and I'm not questioning the solar, I'm not questioning the rail on the back, I'm not questioning any of that. It's the clear, neutral nature, with the exception of one property, which I understand, who said we can't do a similar or artistic finish on the others? Who said that?
Well, I don't know, probably. I mean, I don't know that, what's artistic? I mean, that's the question.
Well, similar to Fourth Prater. I mean, what if there's an opportunity for, I think there's great historical value in many areas of Virginia Street, and why, I guess what I'm trying to get to is I want to know what door is closed for the city of Reno and the community of Midtown and the Virginia Street businesses and residents, and what door is open, because I'm getting mixed messages.
Well, I think the door that's probably fixed now would be, the box that it's in, the envelope that it has to fill. I think like on Grundemeyer, we worked with the Grundemeyers to get to an envelope that was acceptable to them, but still provided us a level of functionality we would need to operate the bus service there. So and by envelope, I mean the number of linear feet in length, the number of linear feet in depth, and to some more or less extent, the number of feet in height that the station would occupy. I think that box is kind of fixed. And again, it's fixed because of the needs of the property owners, our functional needs to operate a transit system. I guess if we want to look at maybe changes in do we want to talk about maybe having a similar thing in Fourth Prater that tells a story behind each of those? I mean,
Well,
I know that cost wasn't that significant, and it was the culmination of all the research that we did in our historical report. But I've just kind of gotten a sense in talking with the neighborhood, they want as less intrusive, perhaps, bus stops in the Midtown area, because in Midtown, we're just replacing and slightly upgrading 3 stops only that we had, whereas the university, we have more stations up there, and they're going to look, again, more along the envelope of Fourth Prater, but at the same time following their Jeffersonian architectural style. So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is we could sit down and talk about it and see what impact it is. But, when I think of the station, I think of it first from the functional standpoint, because we have to establish some level of property need, because we have to go through the process we went through earlier on the agenda. But at the same time, we could certainly maybe go back and have a dialogue about any art component. So, I mean, I'm looking at you. What do you want to see in art, I guess?
Well, I think what I want is to have a consistent message when we call people into a meeting that are residents, businesses, representatives from the city of Reno, RTC. And, I think what we're trying to find out is what is absolutely a non-starter that we cannot change and why, and move those off. And then have a good dialogue with stakeholders and interested parties on how we move forward on the remaining finishes. And I will relate it to a house. Walls need to be sturdy and safe, and they need to be functional. What, with regards to the art, do we have some flexibility within, and to what degree? And I think what the community wants to hear is, what can we absolutely not change? And let's get that off the plate. And then what we can change, let's move forward on those things collaboratively to see what we can, because that has been the message from the businesses and residents, particularly of Midtown, from the inception of this project, is we want this to be a very special, unique street with great finishes. And I think when I hear clear and nothing on it, I think some of the folks in Midtown, maybe I'm wrong, are gonna have issue with that.
Yeah. Jeff, let me ask you, for example, at this station, and this is, I believe, by the bank building,
Yeah, this is LFB.
when you talked to the property owners and sort of had a discussion with them about, how we would appear on their front doorstep, if you will, were those issues ever discussed with them, or,
This one I might ask Doug, but this one was actually shifted a little bit from its initial location because of some of the, conflicts with how it was gonna look and be intrusive. And so this one got shifted a little bit further north, and then, kind of meeting the Grundemeyer criteria. And just another comment related to that is, it got shifted, and it sits where it kind of fits, right? So we're trying not to be intrusive. We're trying not to take as much property as, we don't want to be taking property. So it's been shifted, and on this one, there's like a garden flagpole area behind it.
And I'm not referring to its size or its actual location. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about the aesthetics of it. And I think maybe we were spoiled on the 4th Prater, because to me, when you drive down 4th Prater, while it is wide and beautiful and safe and functional, you notice the bus stops, and they are unique and special. And I just think, even though the Grundemeyer, if we're using him as the template for all, I'm saying as a City of Reno representative, let's put the brakes on that. Because for that one, okay. But let's, if we can, talk about the aesthetics of the remaining ones, because I think there's a story to be told in a very unique and special and artistic way, and this might be the surface in which we can do some of that and make these finishes and aesthetics be what the community wants, and make this Virginia Street the very, very special street it should be. I just want to know if a decision's been made, money's been spent, it's been set in stone, just tell me that.
Not that this is a
how about we do this? Because I partially know the answer, but I would suggest next month in our report, why don't we bring forward more of the detailed bid items related to finishes and discuss those? I know, I'm just going to put it out there. I don't think it's all necessarily written in stone. My understanding of what's written in stone, again, is the box dimensions that we have to stay within. And I would hope that this commission and the city would respect the micro scale shifts we've had to make in stations to accommodate, business owners' needs. But I know there is a detailed discussion going on with our contractors, and they're going through the CMAR process, whereby subcontractors and suppliers are being actively engaged and notified. So what I'm going to suggest is we bring a report back next month. Let's not have weekly meetings, next month, and just kind of go through some of those. Because I know we have a lot of things as we move forward with the CMAR negotiation, as we go through development of the construction, schedule, and then those discussions with those subcontractors and sub-suppliers, there's probably some wiggle room. So let's get a report and bring that back. So that's my fancy way of saying there's probably a lot of things I don't know about the finishes. One finish question, I also want to make sure we research some of the more historic background property discussions. I know on this one, I think there's an aesthetic argument that being able to continue to view the garden in the background from the street and from your automobile is probably an aesthetic asset of being able to see the landscaping. So let's just, we'll drill down and get that report and make that available to the commission next month.
Okay, hold on a minute. Commissioner Delgado.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief, but just wanted to, Commissioner Jordan, thank you, appreciate your questions. I know the amount of outreach, the amount of dialogue we've had over this project was a lot and very thorough. And to go back and feel as though we were misguided or miscommunicated in terms of what the needs were for the community, in terms of their outreach, would be not in, I think it would take us a few steps back in terms of the amount of trust that we've had with the community. So I think they're very great questions to ask. And it sounds like to me, Mr. Gibson, that there is room to talk about what that final product looks like per bus station in terms of where it's located, and I appreciate that. And look forward to having that report. The last thing I want is to have everyone to come back and say, we put in all this work and effort, went to all these meetings, and we still weren't listened to. And I think that would be an unfortunate misstep. So if there's an opportunity to take a pause and take a look and to have that true detailed dialogue, I think it'd be sound for us to do that. Thank you, Commissioner Jordan, for bringing those questions and concerns up.
Mr. Chairman, I think one thing I'd like to add to the record, one thing we've not really done is we have not revisited the branding of the Rapid. We went through, and it's hard for me to say this, as I was reminding myself of how long I've known Rudy. It's been almost 10, 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, we branded the Rapid. As I arrived at the RTC, this project was going through its ribbon cutting, and we were starting the Rapid service way back then. And we went through a very similar process with my predecessors. David Jickling was here during that period, where we actually addressed and came up with much of what you see as the branding of that service today. I think throughout this process, we've not scratched that surface very much, in part because of respect for the decisions that were made during that development of those styles, finishes, and architecture. Perhaps what we should do, and I'm sure I'll get pushback from folks, but maybe we should put that on the table too, and just look at the cost of what that would entail with respect to that branding. That branding, I mean, again, your birthday and Mr. Malfabon reminding us how long he's been around, that's over 11 years ago, and those decisions were made. That was a completely different council, completely different RTC. They do cost money, though. It cost a lot of money, but it's a different Midtown today.
Commissioner Harton.
I'll be very brief. I just wanted to pass on a comment that a transit rider made to me about the 4th and Prater, and that is that they, believe it or not, they feel very safe in those transparent bus stops because they can see people who come up from behind. And it was an interesting comment, and I had not really thought about it, but it was a very interesting comment. So it's nice when you can blend the two together, the aesthetic and the safety. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you very much. And to kind of maybe put a button on this, I'm glad we will be bringing this back. I know that there are discussions ongoing with the city of Reno about the opportunities for the finishes that can be massaged to meet the community's desire of the uniqueness and specialness and artistic nature of this road. I think that RTC and the contractors have done a phenomenal job of getting the bones right and going through the battles on the safety features. And I think the community just wants to hear, this is what you can't change, this is what's not gonna change, but here's still what on the table that the community can be a part of influencing and getting their touch on it. Benches are a big one. Lighting the trees, that's a big one. I mean, I think those are things that the community, which will make it the special street it needs to be, and some of the finishes, maybe aesthetic nature of the bus stops could be, with some of them, could be that as well. And I just want, and the community deserves to know what can change, what's not going to change, and how we move forward.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Jordan. I think staff's heard. At least hopefully Jeff's heard, and Lee, I would expect that we have some meetings with both Commissioner Jordan and Commissioner Delgado in regards to their concerns with the final projects, and get some of that prior to next month's meeting so that we have a more detailed report in regards to those finishes and where we can kind of go from here, so we can also provide that transparency to the public. So. I don't have any further comments to make. My only comment, I guess, would be on this really quickly is that we heard earlier that the NDOT in all their projects provides I-80 and corridor plans. Do we do corridor plans, Jeff, in regards to when we do these types of projects? So we have pre-prescribed ideas of aesthetics and different things like that when we do the initial plans, do we not?
So I believe we did a corridor study for this project long ago, but I don't believe the city of Reno has any kind of corridor master plan for Midtown.
No, but I'm talking as it pertains to aesthetics. Do we do a corridor plan as it pertains to aesthetics?
Mr. Chairman, I'll answer that question, and I'll maybe look at Mr. Jickling. I know in the first iteration of Rapid, going back to when we opened it, I'm looking at David to help me with the history, October of 2009, I believe, was when we opened this. There had been, if I recall, again, an architectural, well, I remember that because we did do that. There was an architectural study done by Stantec that did look at the different textures, materials, coloration, et cetera, that went into that.
Yeah,
So,
okay. So that's, the answer is no, because it was more, that's.
no, the answer is yes.
Well, it's yes, because it's architecture, but I'm talking about design stuff. So that's no, we'll bring it back at a different time, later time and date for a further discussion.
I think,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, what would be good too, let's bring back the history of the design of the original rapid stations from the 2010, 2011, 2012 time period.
We spent enough time discussing this. I think that I think we've got plenty of direction. We can bring it back for further discussion at a later time. And I think a lot of these discussions need to happen offline. So thank you so very much. No further comment. Looking for a motion to accept the report. I have a motion from Commissioner Hartung. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're on to 5.2, approve the proposed FY 2020 program of projects, the POP. Mr. Stewart.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Glad to be here today. Got to hear some good things about some good projects that we finished. We had a good 19 year, or a good 18 year. I'm rushing already. Apologize for that. But finishing up the Southeast Connector and Fourth Prater, just fabulous. So now's the time to add some new projects to our program, get these rolling to meet the goals and objectives that this board has set for the great transportation systems that we have in the region, and continue to do that. So what I'm looking for today is the approval of the fiscal year, the 2020 street and highway program of projects. For this year, I'll go through the little PowerPoint to describe how we get to our projects. So I can get the remote here. So how do we get to our projects? How does it become a project? There's a lot of effort, a lot of approvals by this board, a lot of approvals by local jurisdictions, and the Public Works Director, cities engineers. But it all starts with the regional transportation plan, the 2040 plan. That's where we start. That's where we look at the models. We look at the needs. We try to forecast out the projects that will be needed and how they'll fit into the future, how they'll be funded. And from that, you get the first 10 years, which is the Capital Improvement Plan, or the CIP. You'll hear it referred to quite a bit. That's the first front end of the RTP, the projects that are early on that will be starting to work. From that, you get into the 5-year plan, again, breaking it down into, as you get more details and understand what's going on, you program that into the Regional Transportation Improvement Plan, or RTIP is what you'll hear. Out of that first 5 years, then we start the program of projects, and that's the projects that Street and Highways or engineering in the RTC is working on actively, different phases, whether it be environmental or rigid design or construction. That's where it fits into the program. So the program of projects drives the budget, so the board determines those projects that we want to be working on, and then we fund those in the fiscal year that would happen in those phases of work to make sure that we go on. And then once we get it through that, we deliver these projects. So here's a little bit about just in the RTP, how the projects are there. There's a map of all the projects, robust plan of what we got going on. Projects, are talked about at our citizens advisory committees. They're talked about the technical advisory committees and ultimately approved by the RTC board. The program of projects is reviewed with input attained from all the jurisdictions, that's Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County, as they look at the projects and look at what's going on in their jurisdictions, and we talk about that and what needs to be moved forward and what may need not to move forward. Washoe County would authorize the actual expenditure of fuel tax on those projects. So this is our first step here with the RTC board approves the projects, and then we go to the county to get the authorization to expend the fuel tax on those projects. And part of it then is also the agreements that come afterwards. We enter into local cooperative agreements where we execute and implement the project, assigning the roles and responsibilities of the RTC and the jurisdiction of where the project resides. We know this is RTC does a robust effort to collaborate the regional process. We engage the community. This is on the slide before you here, just a history of the RTP and how the community participated, how the local jurisdiction participated, the public comments that were received, and then how we moved that forward to get the RTC board approval. A little bit more on how the projects are put into the RTP and how they're identified is before you now. So obviously, every few years, RTP gets updated, so projects that are already in there will continue, and they move on and become, through that process, 10, 5, and then into the POP program of which we're talking about today. And then the priorities are set above you there too, and the high crash and safety is always important. Compatibility with other plans and other projects in the area, multimodal conductivity and how we can ensure. We heard a lot about the bicycles and the projects that are moving forward with that, but the bicycle and pedestrian components that go with that, and then the transit component. Are we making sure that these things are projects are connecting all those modes of transportation? We also looking at the newer technology with ITS and operations of our existing systems to make them better and flow traffic better. And as new technology with LiDAR and connected vehicles come up, we have to be understanding that, and can projects be developed with this in mind. And then obviously congestion. So we use fuel tax is the thing we're considering today to be using for these projects. And NRS 373 talks about what this commission's responsibilities are with respect to the POP and the plan that's ahead. So the priorities that are in the regional transportation plan, the projects need to fit within those priorities and be there. They have to be evaluated with relation of where they're at. I have some maps here to follow so we can see that. And then the relative need for the project compared to other projects that might be submitted to the board or asked for from other places, and then the money available. After RTC evaluates and approves the project, the Board of County Commissioners will authorize the use of the fuel tax on those projects, and would be our next stop with the ICAs. So one of the projects is a program, actually, and it's our pavement preservation program. The POP that you see before you, we're still looking at committing a high priority to that. We put some of our pavement preservation on the back burner for the bigger projects that just got finished to move those forward and get those done, like the Southeast Connector. And so for the next few years, we're a robust program to fund that at the full amount of the $16 million. That's a collaborative effort with the local jurisdictions at the expert level of pavements. And so we get the condition of the data provided by the jurisdictions. Those numbers are evaluated in a quantitative manner, and those projects come forward, and we work on those as pavement preservation, slurry seals, and that kind of work that you guys will hear about almost every meeting as far as the projects that come forward. And obviously, we always have members from the team, whether it's the Public Works Director or the senior staff of those agencies that work with us in multiple meetings to ensure that we're doing the right thing. So this is just a preview of the road reconstructs that would be coming in 2020 as far as starting to work at. This is not a solid list. This is just a preliminary candidate list in our initial discussion. So I just wanted to show you how that sort of evolves. We look at these, we look at the utilities, we look at what other developments might be happening, and we run through those to determine what needs to be done, what we can do to improve it, look at whether there's ADA deficiencies, that kind of stuff, and move those projects forward. So it's just an example. We'd be looking at doing those projects, and then we're looking at trying to do 10 million square feet of slurry seal and preventative maintenance with the program also that's before you. So another one of the programs is the bike and pedestrian ADA projects. In the program before you, what we're really concentrating is that connectivity of connecting the accessible connectivity of to our transit stops. And so we're really going to go in there with a robust program as exists right now, and we're moving forward with that in a selection of a consultant for 2018 project that's moving forward. We want to continue that, and we heard loud and clear from the board that that's important, that we make sure that we're getting the customers and especially those that are access challenged to the transit and the alternatives of transportation that's there, and some of the priorities that are set on that. So here's the look at the new projects. We got 6 new projects. You will see those. I'll start from the top just to give you a brief overview of what it is. We're really just starting these projects, so we don't have a whole lot of detail other than maybe a little bit of planning or a little bit of documentation in the RTP of what we envisioned, but the goal here is to get your approval and to start moving these things forward. So Lemon Drive widening up in the north, we'd be looking at providing additional lanes for congestion in there. There would be an extra lanes added in each direction from 395 to Military. And then we'd also be looking at adding additional lanes from Fleetwood to Chickadee in the very northern portion of the Lemon Drive. Going over to the Sparks area in the far east, we have Sparks Boulevard widening, very big project and highly needed with respect to the completion of Southeast Connector and that connection to go into the north. And so we're looking at doing widening of Sparks Boulevard from the 4 to 6 lanes from Gregg to I-80 and I-80 up to Springland in this program. I'll continue around the outskirts before we get to the middle there. 2 bicycle and pedestrian projects that we're really looking forward, multimodal
Mr.
projects.
Stewart, can I stop you really quick? I know
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hartung has a question specific to one of the projects.
Well, so, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do is let him finish, and then we'll come back, because we've passed the
Okay,
the
I'm sorry.
point. No, that's okay. Thank
yeah.
you. So I'll just go ahead and complete this slide, but before moving on, I have a question. Thank you.
Okay, the multimodal improvements there in purple for bike pads in downtown Reno, Forest Street, looking at providing, and Sierra Street. And we're also looking at alternatives and starting the design on West 4th Street in Reno. One of the big ones right in the center, you'll see a spaghetti bowl. What is RTC's participation in that? We're looking at helping participate in that by providing fuel tax. We're looking at $30 million total. That's over 3 years, so that'd be $10 million a year for the next 3 fiscal years to move Spaghetti Bowl Express project along and show that it's #1 priority in the region.
So, Mr. Stewart, before you move on, Mr. Hart. Oh, you wanted to do all the slides? Okay, okay.
Yes, okay, yeah, I beg your pardon. No, so go back if you would, Brian. So I'll express,
Too far.
no, yep, just to the map.
Just to the map.
I
Okay.
apologize.
The new
Thank you,
project.
right there. So I'm going to express a frustration that I have on the next slide and express that same frustration on this slide. So, and I'll start with this. When we fixed Pyramid and McCarran, we widened northbound traffic to just a little tiny bit beyond Queen Way. With all due respect, it's useless. It's a funnel, and me and thousands of people encounter that every day. RTC needed to take it to the top to Disk Drive, just a small amount more. It's surprising how many people are just trying to get to Disk. A lot more are trying to get the traffic thins dramatically by the time it reaches Los Altos. That said, the very top here, you have a widening of Lemon Valley Drive to Chickadee. Why don't we take it to Ogden while we're doing it?
The Chickadee location was
Just
big.
saying.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time with respect to that, but the Chickadee location is because there is a future Eagle Valley connection of where the Chickadee would tie into nicely, and so that's where that limit was drawn.
But I think what you would find, and having lived in Spanish Springs for 32 years and watched how Pyramid has not grown, if we build it, they will come. And the traffic will utilize that, and it just seems short-sighted to me. So when we get to the next slide, I have another one, and I'll, if we can pause at the end of that slide, I'll tell you where my angst is there as well.
Well,
Thank you.
Commissioner Harton, why don't we just jump into it right now? If we'll move to that next map, and we'll just jump into it.
Okay, we can do that. That's great. So Pyramid Highway, the widening of Pyramid Highway to Golden View. With all due respect to my constituents who live off of Golden View, that's not where the bulk of the traffic is trying to go, Brian. They're trying to get, there's at least take it to Sparks Boulevard. It'll be great for Summit Church to widen it to there, but there's just, let's get it just a little farther down. That's where the dogleg is on Pyramid Highway. There's a light at Golden View, and it's maybe only another, I'll bet it's not a full mile to get it to Sparks Boulevard. And there's a lot of traffic that will be put on Pyramid Highway from Sparks Boulevard because it's intensifying. We've got the new Sky Ranch Middle School. There's just all kinds of things that are going on down there, and I just feel that this is a short-sighted plan. That dogleg, and I know right-of-way is a problem, but if we were to go to the west side of the highway, where the dogleg, because I don't know how long you've lived here. Pyramid didn't used to have a dogleg.
Yeah, right.
It was straight through there 30 years ago. So they put that dogleg in when they put the second lane in because Pyramid was straight all the way through there. And then, so they used half of the old highway and then built the new section of the highway, and that's how they accomplished it to move traffic around. So if you were to go to the west side again of that and utilize that right-of-way on the west side, it'd be a piece of cake to get it all the way to Sparks Boulevard because the city of Sparks has some major subdivisions going in up in what used to be Bobby Jackling's old pit up there. So again, what I'm asking you guys to do is just keep an open mind about where we're widening to, because I would love to take you to Pyramid any afternoon about 5 o'clock, and you and I will sit in that confluence, and it lasts just from the point where it goes from 3 lanes to 2 to the top of the hill. Once it broaches the top of the hill down to La Posada, it actually thins back out again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And we can look up, and I'll take you up on that invitation, we can do that.
I'd love to.
So the slide before you is the existing projects that we currently have in our program that we're currently actively working on. It's a great program and moving forward. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time there unless you have questions. And in the interest of time, I can move forward that. And then this last map, it just shows the new projects and the existing projects that we're working on in the engineering and street and highway program of all the things that are going on in the program. This is a table form of basically the same thing that we just talked about with respect to the POP and where we're going, the phases and the existing ICAs or needed ICAs that we would need to do as we move forward with the program and the project for the fiscal year. And then the table form of the existing programs that we're currently working on. And then to finish it up, just open it up to comments and questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. I actually have one quick question, Mr. Stewart. So in the agenda today, we're supposed to approve the program of projects, the fiscal 2022, the proposed 2020 program of projects, or the POP. But you have in here through your slideshow, or through your slides here, a preliminary candidate list. So are these preliminary, or are we approving projects? What are we doing?
For those ones, it's just a preliminary candidate list. Those are just candidates that show an example of how the program works. You're approving the program for the preventative maintenance program, which shows on.
So we don't, so you just say the preventative maintenance is going to be the P1 streets approximately 10 million square feet. So those we haven't specifically identified which streets are going to be identified through in the preventative yet this time.
Correct.
But we are going to be approving the money to do the preventative maintenance through the POP. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any further questions on this? Seeing none, looking for a motion to approve the proposed fiscal 2020 program and projects.
Move to approve.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second from Commissioner, motion from Commissioner Delgado, second from Commissioner Jordan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Could we possibly, don't hate me, could we go back and reopen the Virginia Street? Just so I could get something on the record for our presentation at the next meeting?
Sure, why not? Let's do that.
Move to reopen that item?
All right, I have a motion to reopen 5.1. Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank
Okay, we are back to agenda 5.1 very quickly, so.
Very quickly. The only thing that maybe when we come back and get the presentation at our next meeting, could we also discuss when the first phase is done, which is supposed to be about March, right? And then there's about a 4-month gap, 4 or 5 month gap, am I correct? 3 to 4?
Well, it depends when the federal government reopens.
Well, that's kind of why I'm putting it on here for us to discuss. During that pause, we'll say, can we discuss traffic control and keeping the cones where they are for a number of reasons, safety and the parking that they have in front of Sticks? And then also discuss what project on parallel streets we might be able to do during that pause? Because I know as part of this project, we've also said the parallel bike lanes and some things that augment Virginia Street. I mean, maybe we just need to know what we are going to be doing during that pause.
And I'll let Jeff jump in if I misspeak here, but during that pause, those utilities that we built all that infrastructure for and we're showing in all those pictures will be in there working and installing their actual conduits and providing those services into the new facilities so that the businesses and the people that are there can enjoy those new services in those new facilities. So that's what's going to be going on in the pause and why it's built that way.
So the cones will stay?
I'll let Jeff talk about the details on that cone.
So the intent of the utility project was to demobilize, and so the cones would go away. Anywhere where the utility companies needed to access manholes, it's just a truck or two, and so they could just cone out around that. Our goal was not to keep traffic control devices out there, because then it's a maintenance issue, and it retains on our the contractor's insurance and all that kind of stuff. It's just a risk and a cost to the RTC to keep that out there.
Okay, could we talk about that at the next meeting a little bit more to kind of understand? And the only reason is, and we heard from the community at large that said, when we talked about the pause during the holidays, and they were like, don't take down the cones because people getting used to the flow of traffic and the restrictions, that you don't want it to be there one day, gone the next, back the next day, gone the next. And so there was some concern about this stop and go thing, and are you gonna, I don't know, maybe we can talk about that a little bit more. And then, okay, you already kind of
Can I make
answered the
another
other
just comment about that? So the current way that our phase 2, I guess you could call it, planning goes, is we'd be doing all the side streets throughout the entire Plum to Liberty section. And then we'd also be concurrently working from Plum towards Mount Rose on the south side. So we wouldn't really start reback with, introducing traffic control into that, between Mount Rose and Liberty until November, December of 2019. So that's kind of that's part of the reasoning that it wouldn't, if we kept it there, it'd be a long duration of keeping traffic control in place.
Okay, but maybe just the parallel parking, can we keep that?
Well, I think we should have, look, the idea of the board is to have a discussion about these items, and obviously as the RTC and the staff that we provide you direction from our constituents, and this is a request from our constituents to have that discussion, so I think we'll have that discussion next month. Sound good?
Thank you.
Great.
Good.
Perfect,
All
thank
right.
you.
All right. Seeing nothing further on 5.1, we'll close 5.1. And then we will move on, and seeing no public comment on both items on 5, we will move to agenda 6.1. This is the bike facility alternatives analysis. Mr. Gibson, do you have anything to add before?
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Dan Denges, RTC Planning Manager, for the record. I'm going to provide a brief presentation on the final report and preferred alternative for the bicycle facility alternatives analysis. Just a little preface, I'm not going to go into the detail on the different alternatives. That's kind of already been vetted before, so I'm going to really focus on the Center Street cycle track as well as a bike lane on Sierra Street. With that, just a little background. So we kicked off this project and kind of the preliminary outreach this past summer. You can see the dates up there. We brought it to our advisory committees and this board back in August. Had a really successful public meeting at Reno City Council chambers. There's a great turnout for that. A couple of days later, brought it to the Reno City Council. Then we brought back some of the results of the findings for our public outreach to our committees in November. And kind of interspersed with that, we met with a few businesses along the corridor to discuss questions they had and just kind of go into greater detail about some of the alternatives. So the graphic you see, the chart on the right there, shows the response that we got from the public meeting as far as what the preferred alternative would be, at least with that group. And that kind of was echoed by our elected officials as well. And so overwhelmingly, you could see that the two-way cycle track on Center Street was the premier choice there. And with a bike lane on Sierra Street coming in at a distant second, but second nonetheless. So as I mentioned, I'm just going to go through the preferred alternative. And so just as a recap, here's a rendering of what that proposed cycle track will look like in downtown. We're looking at installing on the left side of the roadway. There'd be delineators there with kind of a buffer between the parking and the travel lanes. And then moving a little further south, likewise in Midtown, it would carry through. And then this next graphic just shows the extent of the project limits, kind of the whole corridor there. And some details about the project. I think you heard through public comment earlier regarding level of traffic stress. That was one of the criteria that was evaluated amongst the alternatives. And the cycle track clearly provides the least amount of stress as a cyclist with that separation from traffic. So at the intersections, you're always going to have a little bit higher. That's just really the nature of an intersection. The estimated cost for this is kind of stated as a range, 2.8 to 4.8 million. And the reason it is not a more finite number is until we get to preliminary engineering, we won't really know the full extent of what's needed for the signal modifications. The project would result in the removal of approximately 53 parking spaces. However, with adjusting the lane widths and the removal of travel lanes, it's not expected to impact the roadway capacity for vehicles. And that's based off an analysis of existing traffic volumes as well as our forecasted traffic volumes. From a maintenance perspective, the cycle track is wide enough to get a small street sweeper through there, so don't really anticipate much in the way of issues as far as maintenance as well. Moving on to the Sierra Street bike lane, you can see it's on the right-hand side of the roadway there. Looks pretty much what you'd expect, similar to other locations in town, and the Sierra Street bike lane would really provide a lot of connectivity to other existing bicycle facilities, primarily bike lanes, and you further enhance that connection between UNR and the Midtown area. I apologize, this is a graphic from an older presentation, so when we first presented the alternatives, we had the bike lane couplet kind of presented as one alternative, so ignore the Center Street image there. We're recommending the cycle track on there, so focusing on just the Sierra Street bike lane, we're looking at a cost estimate of approximately 1.4 million. And of course, that's not taking any parking spaces, and as a bike lane won't have any impact on the vehicle capacity. Kind of the next steps, pending your approval today of the report and the preferred alternative, we'll begin preliminary engineering this year. We'd have continued public outreach, particularly with the businesses along the corridor, and looking to construct Sierra Street bike lane in the spring of 2021, and the cycle track on Center Street in the spring of 2022. And this is largely to avoid any conflicts with the ongoing Virginia Street project now. We don't want to completely tear up Midtown and make it immobile for everyone. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the commission? I have one quick question, and I think that we've heard a number of things from individuals about preference in the biking ability in the downtown corridor, and just in a brief conversation with Commissioner Delgado and myself, this is something that definitely we need to do. We talk about continuing to allow for connectivity in the downtown core and that quality of life for a lot of the individuals that move to that downtown area. However, when I'm looking at your map here, there's a removal of 19 spaces, and one of the challenges we have consistently in the downtown core, and we've talked about it in Virginia Street in the previous agenda item, is parking, on-street parking. Removing parking in one part of the area is, and we just, I know Sizzle Pie, you got Pine Street, you got Pine Street Biscuits, you got CNC right on that Pine Street, and you're taking 19 spaces away. That's going to push people on other places that are challenged, and there's not a lot of extra parking down there. Now I understand you got to lose one to gain another. Are those the losses that people are willing to take? And so if that's the only concern that I have, because there are, and as we continue to grow in a downtown area, parking is going to be something that's going to be mandatory that we build, not only into developments, but around the area. You're going to need to get people in and out of the community, because you don't have enough of infill in the downtown area to satisfy the businesses that are moving into that downtown core. Where are you going to put these people? So challenges you want to think about, as and not that I'm opposed to the first option, but parking is going to be a challenge. So.
Thank you. And yeah, we will continue to have those discussions with some of the businesses there. And, we have had a lot of the support, and you're right, it does represent somewhat of a trade-off, but, as evidenced kind of by the public comment we heard earlier with the surveys and stuff that they did, I think, the cycle track's really going to encourage more cycle trips, especially those that are in the area. So hopefully that will kind of offset any parking loss. And ultimately, we hope to, one of the bigger goals aside from safety is air quality as well, and maybe encourage people to maybe get downtown a different way. But we'll continue to have those conversations.
And one thing I probably needed to do just in your presentation and to put on the record, which one is the preferred alternative for the analysis? Because I didn't hear that specifically in your presentation, just for the record.
Okay,
Which is the preferred alternative?
Apologize. The preferred alternative, as outlined in the report, would be alternative 1, which is the two-way cycle track on Center Street.
And not just the bike lane?
Not just the bike lane, yeah. So it'd be the cycle track on Center. And as I mentioned, they were not initially bundled as the same alternative, but the report also recommends a bike lane on Sierra Street as well. So it's kind of alternative 1 and half of alternative, I believe that was 2 or 3.
Okay,
if that
great.
makes sense.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Delgado.
Thank you, Chairman. This is very, very exciting, and thank you for bringing this forward. I know it's been a lot of work in the making to be here today, and I feel lucky to now be on the board to continue the conversation to push this forward. And I say that with knowing that there are going to be some of those conversations regarding space. We just had one earlier right now regarding parking, but I think it's something that regarding best practices, we talk about constantly in conversations about how we want to move forward as a community in terms of better lifestyle, healthier lifestyles, alternative transportation, et cetera, et cetera. but we don't necessarily always put it to action. We know also by just facts and white papers and so forth that people that don't, we have bike lanes, but the utilization rates are very low if you're not protected. And we know that by far. So here's an opportunity for us to really put that to the test and really take ownership of it. It's in our downtown core. We constantly talk about urban space and wanting to talk about infill opportunities. These are incentives, I believe, to bring more opportunity for residents, for people to take better usage, to take opportunities to use that lane. I know it's along those lines is going to be, again, talking to businesses and others, but to your point also is you may lose some consumers for others in terms of what that may look like. But again, studies after studies, and we've seen them all come forward and say these are best practices in terms of growing communities, incentives to bring in new residential growth and so forth. Or this is what they're looking for. And here are opportunities for us to have that connectivity between the university and Midtown. I know this two-way cycle is going to go right down the center of Councilwoman Jardin and myself's wards. We've had long conversations. We have a conversation with stakeholders and businesses, and for the most part, a lot of them are very supportive of these. But this is an exciting time, and it's going to take some leadership and from us as a board and from the community continuously to be in those conversations to make sure that they are aware of what those changes are. But I'm down there quite often, and I talk to businesses and others, and they're very excited about the opportunity to see a protected two-way cycle lane right on Center Street to add to the amenities that are currently ongoing in the downtown core. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Delgado. Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner Delgado was correct that the meeting we had at City Hall was very well attended, and it was very clear from the advocates that they had done a lot of work in addition to what RTC had done to collect input from the surrounding businesses, and it was overwhelmingly supportive. That being said, we do have to continue to find, what the parking utilization is, parking alternatives, not only for this, but for the Virginia Street corridor. I think we need to get creative on, from an RTC standpoint, on parking for this entire area as part of the multimodal benefit that a lot of these projects bring. And but I do know that there is great enthusiasm, and as one of the public speakers said, bike lanes that aren't protected are great for the, what did Councilman Bobzien say, combat rider?
Yeah.
But maybe not for the casual rider who feels uncomfortable and that a door is going to get opened in their face and their kid may be at risk, and I completely agree with that. And whether it was a ULI study or we had another study that said Center Street is that street. Center Street is going to be that street that connects UNR and its 25,000 students and faculty to downtown and to Midtown and beyond, and that needs to be the corridor in which it occurs. And I think this protected two-way cycle is really the opportunity to do that. And while I didn't support Lime as the bike rider organization, bike share company, for reasons because we don't need to discuss those, I think that bike share is a great thing in our community, particularly electric assist bikes, which means the folks coming from UNR can not only easily get down the grade, they can get back up it. Right. And if you have this two-way protected cycle track, it makes that student population much more inclined to pop on a bike, get down to Midtown, spend their money at Pine Street or Patagonia or any of the other facilities, and then pop back on their electric assist bike and go back up to the university. And so I think this is a great thing. I'd like to see it sooner than what we've got lined up here. But I fully support this, and I think it's going to be great for the region.
Great. All right. Seeing no further comment from the board, I do have public comment signed in for this issue, so I'm going to open public comment at this time. First on for public comment would be Rebecca Stenson. She's speaking on behalf of the Nevada National Wildlife Federation. Is Rebecca, I think she's left. All right, Rebecca's left, so she's no longer here. So next I have Jeff Seary signed in. Welcome, Mr. Seary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board or the commission. I am Jeff Seary. I'm the president and chief executive officer with the Club County Even Downtown Reno. I'm here to oppose, I guess, the bike track itself on Center Street, and not that I am against bikes, bike riders, or bike lanes, but the bike track, the way it's designed in right now, it's on the west side of Center Street. It's going to take away our curb access to our business. That curb access is used on a daily basis for a number of different things, including deliveries, including emergency vehicles, fire, ambulance, and police. And it's also used for maintenance of our building and our signage. We've got a very large sign that's consuming a lot of that area along Center Street, and we have to be able to have a lift truck that's able to reach up and get to those high sign areas that have lights and other maintenance issues. So it is a huge concern in that regard for us, because that lane is putting us further out into the street, and we have to go across that lane in order to get there. I would like to also address congestion. There is, everybody says Center Street's underutilized. I think that maybe some of the studies failed to take into account utilization of Center Street during busy times. Busy times being almost every day at 5 o'clock when people are leaving the city garage, the county of garage, Harrah's garage. Times when there's events over at the Greater Nevada Field, because they utilize the parking at Harrah's and Calneva to access the Greater Nevada Field. So you'll see traffic back up on Center Street from Harrah's, around the corner down 2nd Street, same thing, along Center Street to get into the Club Calneva garage. And so that is of great concern. And the other thing where there's congestion issues is anytime Virginia Street is closed, which is probably 25 times a year. But when that occurs, the traffic is diverted from Virginia Street. The northbound traffic is diverted to 2nd Street, or from either on 2nd or 1st Street, and it comes across and goes up Center Street. At those times, traffic backs up so that literally you can't even get off Virginia Street to 2nd Street and then onto Center Street. So there are some definite traffic issues that come up. Hot August Nights is another issue. They take a full lane during Hot August Nights to do their cruises. So, now you're going to be down to one lane of traffic on a lot of Center Street that's going to create issues. So, again, congestion will definitely be an issue. Safety, I believe that safety is still an issue too. You're now going to have bike riders going north and south, and the traffic that's got to turn left from Center Street to go west is now going to be cutting across this bike track area at the intersections. It's going to be happening at access to the city parking garage. It's going to be happening also in people departing the city parking garage. So I do think that those intersections, you're going to have some safety issues. One more quick comment, if I might.
Yes,
that is expense. If you put a bike lane in, there's no additional traffic signaling needed, but if you put this bike track in, now you're going to have to spend all the additional funds that you're going to need to have traffic signaling for the traffic that's going southbound on Center Street. And there's 8 lights, I believe, along that corridor.
Thank you, Mr. Siri. Appreciate it. Next, I have Miss Wendy DeMonte. Ms. DeMonte, how are you?
Thank you. I'm Wendy DeMonte from Renown Health, here to speak in favor of 6.1, the cycle track. In fact, at Renown Health, we look for opportunities like this in our community to support that improve the health of our citizens. Because at Renown, we don't only take care of you when you're sick or you're injured, but we like to take care of you in your healthy state as well. And so when we look at people having better access to walkability and bikeability, that just ultimately means a healthier community, and we support that. We stand behind that. We advocate for that, because by 2040, when all these other roads are built and all these cycle tracks are in, we want Reno-Sparks area to be the healthiest community in Nevada and beyond. 2 summers ago, I took my son to Seattle, and we happened to be there on the exact weekend that they launched Lime Bike. And so we thought, okay, we'll jump on these Lime Bike things and ride them all over the city. And I was a little apprehensive at first, because here I have my young son biking a big city, and I was nervous. But after the first day of it, I mean, the bike lanes are so impressive up there. They're so well marked. They're so protected that we ended up biking all over Seattle. And if you've ever been to Seattle, you know that that city is built on a hill. So to your point, there's, everyone was still cycling up these gigantic hills. And it really was because they felt safe doing it. I mean, we had tourists and commuters alike on those cycle tracks all over that city. So I believe that here in Reno, where we are built on the valley floor with not quite as intensive hills all over our community, I really think we will see ridership go up immensely. I commend you for the Southeast Connector. That is one of my favorite projects in this area, not only for the road itself is fantastic, but because of a detached bike lane. So now people from the south can get on a completely detached bike lane, take it up to the river path, head west, and get to downtown Reno. It's once you get to downtown Reno that suddenly you're cycling with cars again. So projects like this one will just enhance that connectivity of being able to ride safely all over our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Brandon Siri.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Kind of just want to put it out there. I'm with the Club County as well, and I'm also a cyclist. I run. I live 3 miles from downtown. I often run to work. So I'm out there. Would be one of the users of this project. And I just want to say that working downtown, seeing what it's like, I'm not exactly in favor as it is presented in this plan. And I have concerns for it just, for the same reasons that Jeff just stated a few minutes ago. That we're in a core entertainment district, the safety concerns, the access, the business access to our building, and also with the additional removal of the parking spaces, we have one of the few free parking structures downtown that's now going to start seeing more and more pressure because we're going to be having people parking there instead of right by where they're going. We already get people parking at our structure, going to West Elm, going to the city, going to a number of places downtown, and that's just a concern of ours. Also, I just want to bring up that, people use Center a lot to go north. It's highly used. Same with Sierra. That's where you go to go south. Again, not against the idea of this project. I think this project sounds great. It's just as that it's presented with this two-way functionality is going to present challenges for us. And just lastly, I just want to throw out there that we had met with RTC about this. We'd spoken with them, but we did not, at that time, we expressed all of these concerns, and we told them about this and asked for, can you help us? Can you work with us? And then that's as far as it got. Other than that, we haven't heard anything, and we were hoping we could have maybe had a little bit more conversations before it got to this point. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well, that we were a little surprised today to hear that it's been, the presentation kind of said that everybody likes it. Well, did 10 cyclists like it and one business didn't like it proportionally? That's just something that I'd like to throw out there as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Siri. Ms. Stetson, it looks like you just rejoined us. Would you like to speak now under this topic? All right. Rebecca Stetson with the National Wildlife Federation.
Thank you for your grace. There's a little delay on that YouTube video, so I was making muffins and rushed back down here. But so I'm with the National Wildlife Federation. I do all the climate change outreach for Nevada for them, and I ran a little, so excuse me. I appreciate the comments that I heard you guys make in my absence on the YouTube. And I think it's a token, this project, of what our city can be like. And in my background as a community health advocate, this is a way that we can create a lot of really positive health outcomes in climate change. We are, depending on who you ask, the fastest warming city in the nation. And we need to take significant measures to combat what we're seeing in climate change. And creating bikeability, getting more cars off the street is a huge part of that. So yes, we're gonna lose some parking spaces. Hopefully we're gonna lose more of a driving culture. Because when it comes down to it, based on the reports that came out late last year, we have 12 years to do something significant, or we have serious problems headed our way that we're already seeing the detrimental effects of. And the majority of the population who will see that are those who are low-income folks. And so bikeability is not only a solution to climate change, it's something that if we make more bikeability within the city, we're also meeting the needs of those folks who maybe can't necessarily afford to drive. So I appreciate you guys considering it. I think it'll further beautify our area. And I think it's one solution based on what we've been working with the city on the climate action and sustainability plan. It's in line with that. It's one more thing that we can do to try to keep it cool here in a very quickly warming place. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further public comment at this time on this item. Oh, okay, come on down and we'll fill out a card.
Hi, my name is Ryan McKinney. A couple of things. One, on that first one, if that does get approved, the two-way bike track, whatever signals to bring up to ADA compliance code, they need to be automated. So talking about the 8 to 10 signals, they have to be brought up to ADA standard code of like having the automated signals, where they're automated saying like to tell them when to cross and when not to cross. And two, I live by Sierra Street. So when you're saying with Sierra Street bike lane, are you gonna do like the both sides of Sierra Street, or is it just gonna be one side of Sierra Street for the bike lane? Because students do use that Sierra Street for parking. So you guys need to also be constant, like, of what side you're gonna put the bike lane on. You're gonna put it on the left side or the right side, because that will affect the people you and are using it for parking. And also, if it does get used as a bike lane, there's also some crosswalks that have to also be brought up to ADA compliance standards of the automated crosswalks that are also downtown as well. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could fill out a card too.
Sure.
Thanks. All right, seeing no further public comment at this time, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board at this time for any further discussion. Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation and all the updates. And I do think it's worthwhile getting with the series to kind of answer some of their questions, because I think there is some safety benefits with regards to accessing this lane if we go with the delineators that can be easily removed, and safety vehicles can get in, and vehicles to do the sign can access it. It's not like, my understanding, I don't believe there's going to be some big barrier
Permanent.
that's not movable and flexible, and to where that's still accessible. And also, we don't normally do this. May I ask a question of the public commenter?
Can we do that on the side?
Sure.
Can we do it after the fact?
Sure.
Okay.
There was just some confusion when they were referring to their garage. I'm not sure if they were referring to the city of Reno's parking garage, or you're talking about yours on the east side? Okay. All right, that was it. Other than that, I appreciate the presentation.
All right. Looking at this time, seeing no further comment from the board, looking for a motion. Motion to accept the...
Option one.
Option one, okay. So I have a motion from Commissioner Delgado to accept option one for the cycle track on the...
And to approve the report. I think that's how we can vote. And to approve the report.
It is.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. A motion from Commissioner Delgado, second from Commissioner Jardin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Let the record show that Mayor Smith had to depart the meeting and was unavailable for that vote. All right, we are on to, that concludes item 6.1. We are on to item 7.1. Mr. Ferguson, do we have any legal issues to discuss today?
The only thing that I would say is before the next meeting, we may have a need for an attorney-client session. And so if all of you would reserve a little time on your calendar for that activity prior to the February meeting, I would appreciate it.
Great. All right. Seeing no further discussion on 7.1, we'll close 7.1. We are now to our final public comment. I will open public comment. I do not have any cards signed in. If there's anybody who would wish to speak at this time, I'll keep public comment open. Seeing nobody rush down, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.